something that is something that we have to do. Be aware that the only way to combat disinformation is creating good information that we can put out there so people can find the right information when they do their searches, and so they can be sure, that they can get, what they need. And acknowledge that open and transparent communication is always the best strategy. That's something else that I see happening all the time. People sometimes they believe that it's much better not to be on social media because it is too much work. So they would rather to not to be, to avoid the work, without realizing that when you are not there, basically, you're giving someone else your space, your place, and someone else is going to take the leadership. And as we know, and we were talking about that at the beginning too, most of the time, our influencers these days, they are not qualified people, but people that look a lot of controversy online or likes, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get another like or more attention. So something that we have to always consider is that need for us to be out there and build that presence to be sure that people have access to the right information. So I wanted to start with some data in here because I know that you all love data, right? And so we can understand which is the real power of social media. So something that we know is that social media, as I was saying at the beginning, is full of controversies, right? Because we know that there's a lot of misinformation, data privacy. And still, after everything that we have seen in the past years, probably in the past 5-6 years more than ever, people are still on social media all the time. So we have to consider that there's a lot of people that hate social media and still they use social media all the time because it is a part of these days. And that is something that we cannot, avoid, So which social media sites do Americans use the most? YouTube is the most widely used online platform. And as you can see in here, 83% of Americans report using YouTube like every single day. So it's 8 in 10 US adults. We know that everyone goes to YouTube to look for how to do things, find information, etc., etc. And even though YouTube is one of the most used social media platforms, we know also that when we think about creating content on YouTube, it's probably one of the most challenging content because you have to be able to create video and you have to be able to put your face out there. So that's why also we know that in education, it's really hard to take full advantage of YouTube. It's a lot of work. Most Americans report using Facebook, 68%. So even though Facebook is not the favorite anymore, still people use Facebook all the time. And we have a long, long story with Facebook. So people continue to use it. And we know that there are so many things inside Facebook groups, communication, connection with friends, pages at the professional level. So it is still very popular. And then we have Instagram, and Instagram is usually a platform for younger people, and we know that it's much more focused on fashion and on very visual stuff. 47% of people use Instagram these days. Instagram, 78% are people from 18 to 29 years old, and TikTok, 62% are people from 18 to 29 years old. And this is good information when we think about families, because we know that there is a new generation of parents. So we want to understand where do they go to get their information from. And something else that we know about Instagram and TikTok is that they use Reels or short videos. Also, we see shorts in YouTube, and these are videos of less than 90 seconds that offer a lot of engaging and useful information. So that is something good to keep in mind, that when we want to engage younger people, we have to be aware that they like visuals, that they like video, and they like really short pieces of information. Overall, a large majority of the youngest adults use multiple sites and apps. And this is very, very interesting information too, because about 3/4 of adults under 30 years old, 74% of them, use at least 5 platforms. So these are the people that we see on the phone all the time. They are using several platforms all the time. They are consuming most of their information from social media. So we know that people under 30, they read the news on social media, and that's where this information comes from. We know that they search on social media. They don't use Google anymore, but they go to TikTok, to YouTube, to Instagram, and they do their searches directly on social media platforms. So if they want to find, let's say, information on social emotional learning, most probably they are going to go to a social media platform and do their search there. So again, that's why it's so important to keep in mind that when we work with a plan on social media, we are not only creating content for our direct audience, but we are building libraries of content for the future, because we know that as the world keeps evolving and social media gets more and more power, social media platforms are becoming the new search tools for information. This is far higher than adults' ages. Also, 30 to 49, we know that these are parents, right? Families. 53% of them use more than one social media platform. 50 to 64, it goes down to 30%. And ages 64 and older is only 8%. So I want to stop and ask if you have any question, comments. I don't want to talk and talk.
And Eliana, since you can't see the chat, I don't think, since you're sharing your screen, there was a surprise that YouTube was the most widely used online platform.
Yes, yeah, I just open it. Okay. I use YouTube every day, but don't think about it as a social media, right? I'm using videos to learn. Exactly. And Beth, I think that's the great part about this, that we have this thought about social media being something bad and destructive, right? But actually social media can be something good and productive. What we have is to work on creating these productive tools and creating this information that is out there. So as you do, as you look for videos and things that are going to contribute, people can do exactly the same when they are looking for information for their families. So let's talk about understanding the value of building a robust social media platform. I'm gonna close this a little. So what can a robust social media presence bring to the game? Prevention. So again, when we put good information on social media, and when we do a good job, and when we have a plan, and when we are working continuously, we are building something, right? The power of social media, the magic of social media is that you have to be active all the time, because social media is social. So it's not enough to come once a week and post something and then come back the next week and pretend that is going to give you any power on social media. So when we think about prevention, we think about building that consistency online and ensuring that all the time we are delivering information. So the ability to inform timely and consistently to prevent misinformation. When people know that we are active on social media, when they follow us, when we provide good information, they get used to the information that we provide. They see it all the time and they start trusting us, right? That's where we want to get as educational leaders, to the point in which people know who we are and that we are the main source of information at all times. Social media is also amazing when we think about crisis, because it gives us the immediate ability to address and combat disinformation. So when we know that something is going on, that disinformation is happening, that we see, like people, for example, in the case of social emotional learning, attacking social emotional learning, those are great opportunities to use our social media platforms to actually bring information to people and combat that information, to have discussions, right? And that is scary also on social media for so many people, because it tends to become, like aggressive at one point. But there are ways to control that when we keep, the information clean, and when our goal is to actually, again, like give the right information to be sure that people understand what we are talking about, and not to let, misinformation or disinformation gain. Feedback, ongoing feedback from community members. When we do a good job on social media, also we have like an open line of communication, and feedback is always good. Even when we see negative feedback, that it can be people complaining, or using social media, trying to attack, it still is good feedback because we know that something is happening and we can work with that information. Transparency, open door to support transparency in an authentic and meaningful way. Transparency is probably, one of the strongest things that social media can provide, and that makes social media so powerful. People have the ability to say whatever they want to say, right? And they can do that immediately. They can provide feedback immediately. So being transparent is also having these conversations and understanding that people go to social media because they want to be heard. These days, it's really hard, especially for newer generations, that they are going to pick up the phone, and call and make a complaint or fill a form, and wait like 20 days. That doesn't happen anymore, to be honest. People go immediately to social media and they post something, right? And they tag people and they create hashtags. That's the way in which people communicate. So that's why it's so important to be on top of this and understand, how to work on social media.
Can I ask one question, Eliana? I just wanted to get a sense from the group. So for those of you who work in an SCA, do you know what the policies are on using social media from your office? Yeah. And are all platform, well, obviously not TikTok. We're not even gonna get into TikTok today, but are the rest of the platforms allowed? And
so in Utah, we have a communications team and everything must go through them. So they maintain, like our board meetings are shared on YouTube. We also have teaching and learning YouTube channel, special education services channel. And then we have Facebook, Instagram. What I found that was kind of interesting to me is depending on the audience we're trying to reach, like we have a lot of shares on LinkedIn. I thought like Facebook or something would be more prevalent, but it's not as prevalent for at least us communicating. So everything goes through the communication team. We're not, we have to, if we're going to post something, we have to get approval, that kind of thing. We also have SOPs regarding all of that kind of stuff. Make sure that we are all uniform.
Yeah, that's good. And Alicia added communications team in Maryland, also so the YouTube, Twitter, or X, and Facebook. So that's helpful because I just know, because I worked in an SEA at one point, the Oregon Department of Education, and communications, or at least website was our big communication at that point, right? And it was so like all the rules we had to follow. It was so much easier if like a university was contracting and they got to put something up. But it's a little bit, we're always lagging in terms of our communications and government, and maybe that's not uniform across states, but at least in the federal government, like we know LinkedIn is really popular with a certain audience, but we don't know our policies. We're still trying to figure it out, and we're already behind, right? So sorry, Eliana, I just wanted to get a sense.
That's actually a good contribution. And I think, that at one point we all become advocates, right? When we think about, when we learn new information about how to use social media, how to communicate, when we understand what's behind the fight, basically, against misinformation and disinformation on social media, we all can contribute to the conversation, even though we may not be, in direct charge of the platforms and all that, right? So I do feel that it's a good conversation. So a well-structured social media plan is not only a great investment for creating an online community where families can stay informed, but also an open outlet for them to communicate in an organic and effective way. And now that you said that, Jennifer, I do feel that that's where many times we make mistakes, right? CCAs, LEAs, people online in general from organizations. Many times we use social media only as a way to inform, and we don't realize that the real power of social media is actually collaboration, transformation, right? It is bringing voices. We are not successful if we have 1 million followers. We are successful if we have people interacting with us all the time, if we have people talking to us, asking questions. So that's why it's so important to see social media as a two-way communication method, and not only as a way to disseminate, inform, deliver, but also a way to get feedback and connect with the people that we are serving. So I went back. So thinking about information as a tool for prevention, information needs to be delivered strategically. We have to think that we cannot, pretend that when we post a screenshot of a resource, we are doing a good job. That doesn't work. We have to think about how to be strategic when we talk. When we talk to, again, newer generations of people, they don't read that complex information that we used to read in the past. People don't click on links like it used to be in the past, like click here and go there. People wanna get the information when they actually open the page. So the more information we create directly in a strategic way, the best way we are gonna be serving our communities. So something good to think about is how to create digestible information. So instead of trying to deliver a link that is going to include a document with 10 pages, how do we break those 10 pages into small pieces, and we create like 10 or 15 social media posts that are going to be coming, one by one for 1, 2, 3 weeks, and we are giving people small pieces so they can digest, think, process information, and connect the pieces. Social media, again, is social. I have been saying this since I started. It speaks in a friendly manner, so we have to be sure that we have a voice that is actually engaging, so people feel that someone is talking to them. It communicates daily, so again, it's not something that you do once a week or twice a week. You have to create a voice that continues to talk to people, ask questions. Social media basically, wants to hear what people have to say, right? So it begins with questions like, how do you feel about this resource? Are you looking for something to better understand a cell? Are you interested in helping your child with emotional learning, right? So we have to talk to people and provides practical and engaging information. I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna check the chat because I think, okay, so Laura, so interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I was saying that because we talk a lot about Pinterest being somewhere that teachers have, at least previously, I don't know if it's still current, a lot of teachers get information off of Pinterest. Also teachers pay teachers, but just talking about Pinterest. But the department's never done anything on Pinterest. So we talk about it a lot. We admire that problem a lot, but it's interesting to see Pennsylvania has actually approached it.
Yes, yeah, teachers love, Pinterest. Yeah, and it is interesting to see someone using TikTok too. Yeah, Pat also uses TikTok. Brave people.
we don't talk about TikTok, but it's too tricky. But but to your earlier point too, Eliana, I remember the first time I heard, it was years ago, but my friend, she was unhappy with something that the DC government, she was a process. She was trying to get something done at, like, say the DMV, and she wasn't able to do it. And so she tweeted something out, and they immediately fixed it, which is unheard of in DC government, like at least in the past. So yeah, it was amazing. Like I've never done it myself, but it could work.
Yeah, but it does work. It does really work. It gets a lot of attention. So this is an example of what I was just saying, creating engaging content, not checking a box. In the past, we have seen a lot, like organizations, people posting something like this, right? families learn more about dispute resolution, and a screenshot of the whole page. This really gives nothing to families, because if you put yourself in the shoes of a family, let's say, you know, like they are going through a difficult time with their children getting access to free appropriate public education, most probably this is going to be overwhelming, right? If you compare this like first post to the post of an influencer or advocate, you know, paid advocate online or on Instagram, you're going to see that that person is actually posting like engaging information. And so they can attract people to hire their services, because people want something easy that they can understand, immediately, and that they can use something practical, right? So the second one is a good, you know, like example on how to turn something difficult, like in the first case, you know, into something more engaging. Like, hello families, this week we are reviewing the process of dispute resolution, and this is prevention because we are giving them information all the time. Yes, we know that we have this on the website. We know that we have a section on the website that is going to be SEL. We have a section on the website that is going to be dispute resolution, but it doesn't end there. We have to disseminate that information all the time. We have to create amplification all the time. And that's when we use social media to actually create small pieces that they are going to be engaging, to let people know what's inside our website all the time, and to actually direct people there, because once they see something that they can understand, something that gets their attention, there is much more potential that they are going to go and click on that link, right? Because they feel like, oh, I can understand the information. Oh, I want to know more. But otherwise, most probably it's not going to work.
And is the QR code in case somebody is looking on their computer screen but has their phone with them? Is that how that would work?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that instance?
Yes. So the QR code, they came back, you know, recently. They were so popular for a long time, QR codes, then they disappeared. And last year they came back, and they are, you know, like doing a great job again. You know, people went back to QR codes, and it is like an easy way to direct people, you know, to information. You know how things change, and no one knows how or why, but that's how it happens.
I always figure whenever there's a big thing, like I'm seeing people all wear the same outfit, or there's something, I just figure a Kardashian has probably done it.
Yeah,
but it probably all comes back to the Kardashians.
It is basically, you know, the power of social media. You know, people do it, one influencer do it, you know, and people like it, and everyone start like copying, you know. Sadly, that's how it works. So it happens. So that's the case of QR codes. Someone just brought them up, you know, and then the next day everyone was using QR codes again, which is interesting, right? Yeah. So combating online disinformation through social media. So something that we have to always remember when we think about disinformation and misinformation is that in the case of disinformation, is intentional, right? And it can misinform families, leading them to reactively act in attempts to protect their children from unfair treatment. So when we think about all that I have seen online about SEL, you know, social emotional learning, like hashtags, you know, like NCEL or stuff like that, you know, like people going against, you know, like social emotional learning. If you think about that, it is disinformation, right? Because it is one politician that started, you know, or someone, you know, started the discussion and put a lot of disinformation out there, and then people immediately, many families feel attacked, and they are listening to that information only, and based on that they are joining the movement, right? So that's why it's so important, again, to understand the power of social media, because the moment that we see disinformation, we can revert that by creating a campaign that is gonna be aimed to actually inform. So when disinformation is out there, parents may sometimes spread misinformation because they get disinformed, and they start passing the ball or passing the information while trying to assist, you know, or help other families in protecting their children. So do you have any examples, ideas that you would like to share about this information? Have you seen something online that have called your attention when it comes to these like movements? And Jessica is saying here, especially living through the pandemic, I think everyone became a lot more versed in technology than they thought, especially with work. Yeah, QR codes are super handy, especially when you present. Yes, they are so good. And Jennifer, great, yeah. Okay.
I have a disinformation example that was in my kids' school this year. The principal had to take some kind of leave, and we have a Facebook group for the moms of Deep Creek Central Elementary. And of course, the rumors started about why he took leave, and got really nasty. I mean, he came back after 2 months. He is still there. And if those rumors were true, there was absolutely no way he would come back. But it was really sad that that's the first place that moms jump to. And then if you don't like the principal, then they just kept feeding on. And it's so that it was hard to combat that, I think, for those of us who think he's doing a great job, because when you take a personal leave, there you shouldn't have to tell anybody why you're doing that. So it was interesting, and I hope that those rumors have gone away, but they just don't talk about it anymore. I'm pretty sure those people just still think it. It was a really unfriendly situation.
That's a great example, right? And
yeah, Corinne,
Go ahead.
Corinne, I will tell you that in California with the dyslexia state group, it got so ugly that they were calling people out on Facebook. So you really have to think about your use of social media, and when it caused a lot of harm, they had to step back and rethink. So yeah, you have to be careful.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, sadly, it is bad because in the past it used to be the gossip, right? But the gossip was just like talking, about each other, and that was it, you can forget about it. Now we are talking about written information that stays there forever, right? And people attacking and people joining that they don't even care about the topic, but because it gets, controversial. So it is for sure. Yeah.
And Eliana, is the best practice to have a moderator anytime you have a communication stream?
Yes. Always. And I think I talk about this in another slide here, but that's the most important part, when you have social media, again, it cannot be taken as something that you go whenever you have time. You have to have someone full-time be on top, on social media. We have to start rethinking on how to use social media, because we cannot just decide not to be on social media, because that means, again, not having representation and not being sure that we are providing the right information. So we have to budget for having someone on social media. So that's a good, actually, that conversation is a good connection to the next slide, if I can move this. So social media provides a fertile ground for the spread of disinformation due to its wide reach, instantaneous dissemination, and the ease with each content can be shared and amplified. But it also provides a great opportunity to address disinformation through a multifaceted approach, which includes fact-checking, media literacy education, platform moderation, and public awareness campaign. And that's the part in which we have to focus, right? We have to focus on the things that we can do and how we can prevent, social media disinformation. So state education agencies, districts, and local education agencies can create campaigns to inform families and assist them in identifying information. I think this is more, critical than ever to actually help, people understand how to spot, fake news and disinformation. Again, many times we assume that everyone will know, but I'm always impressed because even people that I know, that are super smart, that have like graduate degrees, they come with this information and they get like very personal about this information, right? So we have to consider about how do we do this, like all the time when we work with families, how do we help them learn to consider the source, check the author, check the date, make the difference between a joke, and reality. Memes are going around all the time and they become, news sometimes, how to ask the expert. And I think the most important for all of us that we work, as education leaders, how to become the leaders in education, right? How to become the leaders in our fields, to be sure again that when there is misinformation or disinformation out there, people know that they can come to us, that we are the expert, and that they are gonna find the right information with us. Okay. Alicia says, we see that frequently with special education topics. And Beth, in Washington State, there is a great deal of scrutiny over restraint and isolation right now, and there's a lot of fighting between families and schools on the need of for or against that, with our kid caught in the middle. Yeah, that's the sad part all the time.
I have to say, can I just add one point to what Beth was saying? So I think, I'm gonna guess most of us here don't love the idea of banning large swaths of books from schools and things of that nature. And there was a great piece on 60 Minutes a few weeks back. Did anyone else see it? I mean, talk about old my news is coming from 60 Minutes. But anyways, but they did such a good job combating the misinformation part. It was just, kind of like the way that they did it, that you could certainly, they have the TV to do it with, but you could have done it anywhere. And so what they did was they called out the most extreme piece that the people had put out on, I think it was on X. He read it word for word and said, so this is what you think is happening. This is how you define what you say is happening. If we're the word you used, it was grooming, right? And he's like, and this is how it's defined. Is that what you meant about these people? And they were completely unwilling to respond to him. And they had their talking points, and so they just went in a totally different direction, but he just kept on bringing it back. Like, no, is this what you meant? And then from there, they said they had military folks come on and say, we actually fought for freedom for this country so that people have the freedoms to do these things. And then they talked about, but it was just such a smart way to approach what was going on and meet the conversation where it was and give another perspective of it. And I thought it was kind of like, it's a big national effort, but so is a lot of the social emotional learning. And so it's like, who are the respected voices? How can you present them? How can you meet the argument in a respectful way, but asking, is this really what you mean? Because this is
exactly. Yeah, and it's the ability to communicate that too, right? To be able to talk, in a way that helps communication. So again, the more committed we are to delivering engaging, meaningful, and family-friendly information, the easier it is to prevent disinformation, because what we want to is to get the attention of people. We want to compete, with friendly and easy and engaging content. And this is something that is not easy to be achieved. This is something that cannot be done, like by someone who has extra time, like every week. This is something that needs to be done by a professional. So again, it is so important to consider the role of the social media manager when you think about doing a good job on social media. So it is an open door for communication. And you were talking about this, Jennifer, and treat your social media platforms as you will treat the main school phone line. That's basically how we need to think about social media. Is someone answering? Because, if you have the main line in your office, in your organization, in your state education agency, in the school, you need someone to pick up the phone when someone is calling, right? social media is exactly the same. Someone needs to be there all the time and know what is going on and answering. Social media can be used for informing, and I was referring to Leading by Convening here, the blueprint created by OSEP in partnership, with community partners. And I love Leading by Convening when it comes to the depth of information, because we talk about informing, networking, collaborating, and transforming. And basically, because social media can do that for us. We can inform, we can network, we can collaborate, and we can transform when we do a good job, because we are creating a two-way path of communication in which everyone can have a say in and can contribute. As educational leaders, we have the responsibility to contribute to the online library of the world by providing accessible, engaging, and simple information that everyone can digest. Again, every time when we post something on social media, it's not temporary. It is something that we are posting in there that is going to contribute to that library. People are going to keep finding that information, and that information is going to keep guiding, their decisions. So that's important to keep in mind. And how do we make this happen? We have to be strategically content planning and creation, strategically plan and create educational content that is accessible to a wide audience. This involves identifying key topics, ensuring clarity and simplicity in the message, and using formats that cater to various learning styles. We have to be sure that we use the right platform and that we optimize the platforms that we use. So we have to understand the difference, right, between posting, as I was saying at the beginning. It's not enough to post something on your website. That's great. Your website is basically your house, right? So you post all the information in there, but most probably nothing is going to happen if you don't amplify that information. So that's going to be the first step, to publish on your website, but then you're going to need social media to disseminate that information and be sure that that information gets more people. And you have to decide, how to make that happen again. So that's the idea of combining technology and social media to be sure that dissemination happens and that amplification is maximized. So we have to optimize these platforms for accessibility, and again, be sure that all the information that we publish is accessible for everyone. When we think about disability, when we think about people who speak a different language, when we think about even, the way in which people read, learn, and communicate. Engagement and interaction. Foster engagement with the content by encouraging interaction. So again, we have to be sure that we develop a voice on social media, and that we are engaging, that we know how to talk to people, that we invite people to be a part of the conversation. Respond promptly to inquiries and feedback to maintain an open dialogue. Going back to that, idea that social media should be used as the main line in your organization. It is important to regularly monitor the performance of the content. We want to be sure that we are continuously evaluating and improving our content on social media. And because social media is evolving all the time, something else is that we need to be on top of what is going on, right? So that's why it's also a full-time job, because we know that when Twitter changed to X, we know that we have to make adjustments. We know that now that Twitter is X and people are leaving Twitter, we know that LinkedIn is like the most used professional social media platform right now. So things are changing all the time, and we need to be on top to be sure that we are doing a good job. Use this data to assess effectiveness and make informed adjustment to improve accessibility, engagement, and simplicity over time. Something else that we have seen happening on social media in the past few years is that the content can change completely, right? Again, from my previous experience as a blogger and influencer, it used to be that we needed to write like blog posts of 2,000 words because people love to read. These days, it's only 300 words that people read. We know that if you post more than 300 words, people don't read. People just close the page because they have no interest. We also know that people love short videos. So probably, it has to be the 300 words article. And on top of that, or on the side, the same content on video, because people want to hear the information. They want to listen to the information. They want a podcast, right? And some people want to read. So these days is like harder than ever because people have a lot of expectations when we think about dissemination, social media, communications. It is hard work, but we need to make it happen. So yeah.
Eliana, quick question. Substack. I don't know much about it, but I just was looking at it for the first time. Do you know anything about that platform?
I don't.
Okay. I don't know if it's the next thing or not, but there was an author I liked his work and another podcaster, and they both were providing information through it. So one to watch.
What is it? Substack?
Substack. Yeah, it's, so it was a web page that had their resources and it sends out emails. I don't know much beyond that, other than a couple different people on the same day both said you can go to my Substack.
Oh, I see it.
More.
A new economic engine for culture. Interesting. You see? That's a good thing about this, that you always learn something new, right?
Yeah.
So it is hard and important work. This effort requires careful planning, implementation, and measurement, just like any other crucial aspect of our mission to ensure that families and their children have access to the best possible resources and information. So I want to leave you with that because, again, I think the first, and the most important step in addressing, the need to understand the importance of social media is to understand that it is an essential part of the work that we do when we think about disseminations and communications, and it's not optional, and it needs to be treated, with the same actually respect and thinking in investing on doing a good job on social media can help us actually work on prevention, ensure that we are informing, and ensure that we have the right tools to combat disinformation. So that's what I have. Do you have any questions, comments?
Or just thoughts that you're percolating over how to use the information?
I just had a thought throughout the whole thing. I can't remember which conference it was. I think many of us were there, where we had like the Surgeon General talking about all the downsides of social media. And now the way that you presented it, it's like so many positive things, even like an emergency crisis response. I mean, there are so many things that show the value of it. So it was almost sort of made me flip-flop in my mind a little bit in thinking about social media.
Yeah, and I really like to have that approach because, again, I see people saying like, we are not on social media. That's the answer. It's not, because everyone is on social media. And if we think about new generations, we cannot do that disservice to them to say like, I don't want to participate, my knowledge is in my mind and come to me if you want to hear about it. We have to keep working on it because that's the only way to combat, what is going on with social media.
Yeah, it was interesting one time. So Eliana and I, along with Rebecca Hornak from CSEP, we are facilitators for a dissemination community practice of TA centers. And we were talking about, was Twitter at the time, I think, one time, and someone was like, oh, only everything's so ugly and there's so much, on Twitter. I was like, I've never seen anything ugly on Twitter, and I guess it's like, I know it's weird, but I don't spend too much time there, but it's like a bunch of researchers and I get to see their research, and I've never seen anything. So it's interesting how we can have such different experiences. In Instagram, it's like, I don't know what else is on Instagram, but mine is very specific and kind of weird, the stuff that I have on there. And a lot of the stuff I show my son, and it shows him that there's some nice stuff, some good news stories, and some animal videos, right? That ends up coming up a lot.
You must not be looking at anything political, Jennifer.
Never.
Yeah, that's why.
No, I don't. I just don't. And I live in DC, so I'm surrounded by it, but I hate how much money goes into politics. It really bothers me. And so I just try to stay. And yeah, we get all of Virginia's TV ads, so that's bad enough. All right. Well, so in the last 3 minutes, let's think a little bit, and you all can follow up by email, etc. But let's think a little bit about where we go next. There's lots of possibilities. We can be continuing on communications, networks, information, disinformation, or we can go to one of the other topics that we've brought up in the past. This was our VMOSA, vision, mission, objectives, strategies, and actions. One of the things that we haven't really done, I started at one point, was cataloging CEL evidence-based practices, just putting that out there that we could go back to at some point. But we did talk about best practices in messaging, which I think we got at some of that or a lot of that today with Eliana. Implementation and evaluation, exemplars from family and community, the district and the state levels. And then create an infographic or other messaging resource that would help. So that relates to what we talked about today too. Defendable theory of CEL is important for the messaging. Social networks that could support our message. And then you can see some other topics. So anything come up for you that you would want to talk about next or somewhere down the road?
And I'm gonna leave for my next meeting too, but thank you.
Eliana, what a joy it has been to have you here. We just got our thinking going so much, really great information. And we're lucky to have you in the network. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Eliana. So any quick thoughts in the last minute? No. Okay. Well, email me if you think of anything. I can always guide our next steps, but I love hearing what's going on in your brain about what you want to know.
Jennifer, in Maryland, we're working on integrated social emotional learning with our math focus area of our SPDIG. And one of the things that we're struggling with is getting measures for SEL that we're working with our advisory group, and each time we bring a measure, we get more advice about our measure.
Okay.
And developmental markers for looking at children developmentally when assessing their SEL skills. And so if there are folks out there with that expertise, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Looking at measures, talking about measures.
Yes.
Does that summarize it? Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I mean, it's on our list, so we can definitely talk about it next time. Related to that. Great. Well, thank you for bringing it up, Alicia.
You're welcome.
And it was good to see everyone. Thanks for coming. I think that was really fun for me, hopefully for you too.
That was really excellent. Thank you for arranging that, Jennifer.
Oh, she's great. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.